Good evening and welcome
Okay.
to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today I have Roine Stolt is on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's, if I remember right, it's Monday evening here in Sweden, and
Yes,
probably like whatever midday
it is.
your
It
American.
started midday with us trying to get hooked up with Zoom, but
Yeah.
it feels
Now
like it's almost
getting
almost like
getting
it's
close to
nighttime.
midnight, right?
Right, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's just stupid technology. This is a great gift to have you on. I appreciate you taking some time. I
Mm,
want to introduce you
mm,
to people that aren't aware of you.
mm,
Later on in life, I got more into progressive music, and I come across your music. As saying earlier to you, one of my favorite things is I'd listen to an album and I really great. And then because like if you're listening to like multimedia or something, it's like the old days, an album, a cassette, you get it, you'd be listening and looking at it. Now it
mhm,
streams and it recommends something else. You're like, oh, it's really good. You go back, you listen to who that was. You're like, oh, it's a good album, good song. But then you don't realize all the players. That's the one
mm.
drawback of having devices. Well, what I noticed is a lot of these bands, you were in like almost all of them,
Yeah.
which was
Well, not
fantastic.
not all of them,
Well, but
not
I'm saying a
yet.
lot of the bands that I'm discovering, I almost feel like it's you and Mike,
Yeah,
like calling each other up saying, I got into the band. Like you guys are
yeah,
competing like a
yeah,
big
yeah,
checklist, right?
yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah.
It's got to be very engaging and very fulfilling as an artist to be able to write music and perform with so many different artists, you know?
It is definitely it is, and it's interesting because right now, actually, half an hour before we hooked up here, I'm remixing stuff, old Flower King stuff, and then I realize, and I've been doing this now for about 6 or 7 months,
Yeah.
because the record label, they're re-releasing pretty much everything that we've done on vinyl and also on CD again, because some of the titles were out of print for some time, so and that just brought me back to the beginning of this phase of my life when I started playing progressive rock again, because I started already as a whatever 16-year-old, and playing bass at the time, and then I switched to guitar and I joined a professional band here in Sweden called Kaipa, and so I made my first album back then in '75, and then I've been doing lots of music, recorded music, touring, and uh, you know, I can't really tell why, but in some strange way, the progressive rock brought me back
Yep.
some 25 years ago. In between, I've been doing popular music. I've been producing other artists, playing kind of radio friendly music,
Right.
for a living, for some whatever 10 years, when my kids were small. I did that, and nothing wrong with that, because I know, I've been growing up with the Beatles and all that, and pop music, so that's fine. But anyway, the Flower King sort of brought me back to progressive rock and making these albums. I now realize that uh, in these re-releases on vinyl and everything, and I need to sometimes go back and remix stuff,
Mhm.
remaster stuff, because you can do so much more now than I could do 25 years ago, with the equipment. And only, I mean, just look at the digital versus the analog, because when we did the first Flower Kings albums, we did on analog tape,
Right.
and these tapes I can't even play them anymore, because
Oh,
these
really?
tapes are, I mean, they sort of slowly die.
Right.
you
They
you can
erode.
actually, yeah, you can actually bake them in an
Yep.
oven. That's what people do. So I suppose that's what they've done with Rolling Stones albums, with the Beatles albums, with
That would
George
make me anxious
Martin's.
putting that and baking it and warming it to me. I'm like, oh, it feels so counterintuitive. Like I would just go for recording analog. And I'm like, oh,
uh,
tapes. Oh,
yeah, but I
yeah.
mean, yeah, and it went from analog tapes to I think to hard drive recordings before it
Yep.
moved over to computers. So I have everything. I have storage with every kind of possible recording device.
Billion DAT tapes and everything else.
Oh,
right?
totally, totally. Yeah. Maybe not a billion, but a lot of them. I have a lot.
And then you need all the devices to play them, right? You need all those
exactly.
and then convert them.
I actually do have some of the stuff. Let's see if it can.
Yeah.
I can give you a quick.
I like those orange amps there I see on the side. I love those.
Oh yeah. Maybe do you see something here?
Oh yeah, I do. Look at that. Nice.
Some machines. Yeah.
Yep.
So these machines were used to record some of the Flower Kings music, and the live recordings, everything. So there's plenty around. But anyway, I mean, looking at the music now, I realize there's so much. And as you probably know, so many double albums. We're the king of double. We're not only the king of flowers. We're also the king of double.
The king of doubles. Yeah. The king of double flowers. Yeah, but that's so awesome because I think that's the kind of music. And I want to interject. I do want to say I think there is, with your progressive music, a pop sensibility to it. It feels like you could be the gateway to a lot of people coming into progressive music on some of your songs.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a compliment, because
it
has the strength of both of them because that's writing a good pop song is outrageously hard. I'm not talking like a radio top 40 hit, like, a Money Machine. I'm talking like a really good pop song that affects people.
Yeah.
And then writing a good progressive song that has interesting music to it, and to meld those together or marry it together is just,
I mean, totally.
great.
I think actually some of the more successful progressive rock music, I mean, in terms of progressive rock, you look at the Big Five or something like that, with Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, maybe Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I don't know, Gentle Giant or Jethro Tull, whatever you want to have. But I think what these bands have in common, they could write a good pop song within the format of like this expanded symphonic progressive rock piece,
And then radio would just chop it up and find the one hit single in there and pull it out.
Oh yeah. I'm sure they were at the time maybe a little bit upset when they chopped up Roundabout for Yes or something like that,
Right.
But, or whatever. Maybe Keith Emerson got upset when they had a hit with Lucky Man or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the reality is that without that, I think maybe some people wouldn't have discovered these groups, and then they went to a concert, and then they get all this amazing instrumental and symphonic music in between that I think people can understand once they get there. Once they get in the concert seat, they can take in all the music, and the simple pop songs just help, to introduce the fans to the
I would like to think that like with Genesis even. Like when they first switched over to Phil Collins, singing and the pop songs, that people listen to that and then go back and go, oh, there's more. And they find the other stuff with Peter Gabriel. And you know what I mean? It's everyone kind of goes reverse engineering. Or even Yes with 90210. Like I said, poppier, but then they go back. Like it keeps bringing everybody into it.
Oh yeah. I mean, totally. It's of course it's probably not going to stay for long, but I think it opened up and it helped, and some of the fans you actually keep, because you have to remember also fans of the music, they over time develop their musical tastes, because when I was a kid, I liked the Monkees. I liked them very much, actually.
They're very enjoyable. Peter Tork lived around here where I lived. He lived around here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I like them a lot, and then I could go from that to 6 months later, I was listening to Vanilla Fudge and with their heavy psychedelic, almost hard rock style, and Jimi Hendrix and Frank Zappa, and I mean, it's a huge step, but for me, it was kind of a quick step over to explore that kind of music, and I still like the Monkees, I still like the Beatles, the simple Beatles songs. So so why not, and that, I think that sensibility is in the Flower Kings music always been there.
I think it's in all your music though, like and how you write. I think it's who you are in your DNA.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Transatlantic albums. You have the same kind of thing, you know. We have the expanded instrumental sections, but you have also the simple pop songs, you know, or the ballads or stuff like that.
Which is, you have an interesting band. You have Neil Morris and Mike Portney, who we talked about before, who's
Yeah,
also really great at being in a lot of projects.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm escaping the fourth member. Is escaping my name.
Peter
Yes,
Trevavas
yes,
from
and
Marillion.
he is so good too. So it's not an omission that
Oh.
I don't on purpose. It's just got too much in my brain.
Oh, yeah.
He is so
He's actually, I think, my favorite living bass player right now. He's an amazing guy and amazing bass player.
I find in progressive music, there's a lot of just really great solid the art guys, like everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like not egos.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just spoke to a drummer from another band of yours, See Within.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
talked to Marco the other day, and
Marco.
he is just a great guy too. Beyond talented, of
Oh,
course. You know,
he's actually, I'm just dropping my favorite musicians here, but Marco is probably also my favorite drummer
he's
at the moment.
ridiculous.
You know, he's ridiculous.
Interesting drummer though too.
You know what?
Right?
I saw it. Yeah, very special, very unique style of drumming. You
He
know,
reminds me of Bill Buford, because he's different, not the same sound of him, but different playing for
no.
different projects. You know what I'm saying? Like he'll fit the
Oh,
project. That makes sense, right? For the
yeah,
song.
definitely, I would say, and I actually saw him play with the Zappa orchestra, the guys Mike Keneally and a couple of other guys,
Yep.
Scott Tunis, I think Scott Tunis from Frank's original band from the 80s, and who else? A couple of other guys that used to be in the band in the
Is
same.
it, they talking about the newer Zappa thing you're doing now?
Yeah.
I just talked to Mike about that the other day too.
Yeah. I mean, that was probably the only the full concert I saw on the boat. But anyway, Marco was sitting in with them, and I think, I mean, the story goes that the original drummer had a problem with playing on a boat, which I can understand, because the boat is going like, yeah. You can feel it, you know. So if you have any problem with being on a boat, you know, and then play balance thing, you're playing drums, you know. But anyway, so Marco joined them, and I don't know if they had any rehearsals or maybe one rehearsal or something like that, but he just nailed it. And these songs are just super complicated, you know. So he's definitely totally in a league of his own, I think. Mm-hmm. I've never heard anything like it, you know.
He's very
absolutely many great drummers, great grooves, great players, great technique. But Marco is something else, you know.
I think him being a multi-instrumentalist and like how he writes. And I said, well, the Aristocrats, like, because they're all a full bunch of talented guys. And I'm like, the writing process is interesting. I asked about yours. Is like they all bring their own stuff and almost fully completed on some level with all their own instrumentation of the parts of the others. I'm like writing guitar for like so and so in that band, and bass for like everyone's so good at their craft to bring in an instrument to each of those guys. I'd be like, I don't know if I'd want to do that, but they have a formed idea already because they're so good, and everyone's of course open-minded.
I'm open-minded, and it's fine. You can play each other's stuff, and it's not prestige. I think that sometimes it's just like if you have an idea and you bring it to a rehearsal room and people start working on it and you develop it together, that's fine. But also bring something that is pretty much written is fine too. I mean, that's what people like Frank Zappa did. Yep. And I'm sure Marco does it too. And I realize now that I do it too, because of some of the remixes I'm doing. I'm thinking that pretty much a lot of the bass lines were written, a lot of the keyboard stuff were written. But then you have, of course, people coming in and adding something unexpected, you know, and I'm always open-minded, you know. So if someone, let's say a keyboard player, come in and say, oh, I did this crazy keyboard solo over this part, maybe you wanted to sing, and I say, oh, no, I just leave it, you know. I'd rather have you playing that great solo. So being open-minded is important, but also bringing in something that is, you know, that you have spent a lot of time figuring out bass, because I used to be a bass player. So for me,
Yes.
it comes very natural to, even at the keyboard, I can play the bass at the keyboard. And it's not about the instrument. It's not about if I'm playing the actual bass guitar or keyboard. It's about understanding the bass line and how the bass line can be sometimes supporting and be playing very simple stuff, sometimes long notes, sometimes something that brings a groove, sometimes harmonizing.
Mhm.
Things like a guy like Chris Squire was the king of harmonizing on the bass, because he always found the right notes, you know, to harmonize for the vocals and stuff like that, you know.
Well, I think
So
with
it's,
bass, it's interesting that you would do that. I think because you're a guitar player, it probably makes you a better bass player. Because then you just play with Steve Hackett too, right? Sorry, you
I,
may step
I,
over
I
you.
yeah, no. Yeah, I did. I started as a bass player, so for me it came very natural. And then I've been playing bass, sometimes playing a couple of songs on Flower King's albums. I did a blues album called Wall Street Voodoo some
That's good.
10
That was
years
good.
ago, and
Yeah.
I played all the bass on that one. I played bass on a couple of other albums, but I think and Agents of Mercy, I think I played some bass on that also. And I think actually uh, coming in to play with Steve Hackett was because I knew Genesis music so well, you know, from my
Right.
teenage years, you know. And I think that Nad knew that. So when Nick Beggs were going somewhere else, you know, Nad said, well, Roine knows Genesis music perfectly, you
Right.
know, and he's a great bass player, by the way. And he can play guitar, you know. So you can play guitar, you can play bass, you can play with
I
Steve
was just
Hackett, you know.
interesting to see that, though, to see the bass. You played bass. I'm like, after all these years of being the guitar player, I'm like, and then you playing bass. It's just very interesting to
Yeah.
see you mix it up. But I mean, you've always mixed it up. I have a question though, like with songwriting. I mean, from being
Mm-hmm.
starting with early with like Cappy, if I'm saying correctly,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's actually tell people afterwards on top of the website. Your website there's been like remixes, remastered of other stuff. The
Mm-hmm.
old band, it's brilliant, and that actually so it makes probably multi-part question. When you're songwriting from back then, has it
Mm-hmm.
changed? And collaborating with so many different people, and then the Flower King started kind of soloish, but then it kind of became you, and then you're more or
Mm-hmm.
less the leader now because members have changed interchangeably.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there is this thing about your sound and your guitar playing, and this is why you're one of my favorites, is because you can overplay. There's a danger of just noodling in prog rock forever.
Mm-hmm.
Or like go back where everyone needs to go get a beer, like because it
Mm-hmm.
can be so excessive. And that's you have a really niche crowd to begin with that's really dedicated.
Mm-hmm.
But you're really good, and all your bands are finding a succinct way of keeping it interesting but
Mm-hmm.
and challenging it and stopping and going to something new before it becomes more leaving people wanting a song. So there's a challenge over the years with writing with people, changing and then keeping the quality. Because if I go back and listen to your old stuff and your new stuff, it just sounds
Mm-hmm.
different. It doesn't sound like
Yeah.
that's an older raw version. Even the Flower King's recordings are just different. They're not. They sound good. They're not dated. Nothing's dated in your writing.
I think it's changing all the time. It's always you do something, and let's say I do an album where there's a lot of guitar playing, you know, and then probably I want to do the next album, do put in some whatever acoustic guitars, or uh, look more at orchestral stuff, or scale down and do more vocals, you know. And if you've done lots of vocals, maybe then you want to do stretch out the instrumental parts.
Mhm.
So it's like for a musician, I think, generally speaking, I think is always about finding something that's interesting for you. That's the starting point. Because if it's interesting for you to play and record, then it's probably, hopefully, I would say, it's interesting for the listener. Because there's no way, well, you can try to speculate whether the listener will like it or not, or what are the people looking for, stuff like that. I'm sure there are musicians out there that do that kind of thing, but
I think you
personally I
fail
could.
if you do that, though, don't you? As an artist,
Oh
after
well,
by your second
I
album like that, you're like, oh, it's not really you
yeah,
anymore.
no. And then you have to remember that what I usually say is, well, you can do that, but is that really what you want to do? Because then you will need to play these songs live. These are the songs that people want to hear, you know.
Mhm.
So if you let's just imagine that the Flower Kings do like a techno style song, you
Don't
know,
you dare.
and it becomes a big hit, you know. And how can we possibly, because okay, then we jump up from, let's say, playing for 350 people, we jump
Right.
up to play for 3,500 people
Right.
or 35,000 people, but then you need to play your hit song. You can't
Yep.
really start playing whatever Garden of Dreams or Start As We Are, you know, because that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear the hit songs. So
That's
you
it.
got to be who you are, you know. You got to be comfortable in your
Your
whatever,
skin.
yeah, in your skin.
Well, I think the
Correct.
bands that they'll come out and do an album and everybody loves it, and then they try to emulate this, what you think they want of them. When they're like, people
Mhm.
fell in love with you, who you were in your first album, when you had no impression of people. It was just who you were, and
No, no, no.
they love that music. So when you try to chase your own fans that enjoyed you, you're diluting yourself. You know, kind of like watering yourself down to.
Yeah, I mean, the reason actually I did the very first album that was called The Flower King. It was just like there was no money involved, there was no record label, there was nothing. It was just me and a tape recorder
It's a
and
beautiful
some,
album.
yeah, it's some songs I've written, you know, and at the time my kids were really small, so I, you know, it was a difficult time because I needed to support my family, but at the same time I was in a phase of my musical career where I've been doing producing other people, playing on other people's records, you know.
Yeah.
I produced stuff, even had some minor hits that would play on the radio, you know. So that could have been the way I've been going. I could have been going
Right.
deeper and deeper
Producer.
into that, you know, producing other people's stuff. So uh, the Flower King album was probably something I did to just you know, do something that I felt was fun doing.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because of the reaction, and I could see that there was reaction from Sweden, from Norway,
Mhm.
from Germany, from Holland. Suddenly people just found this album, you know, trading albums, and found it online and whatever, you know, at the time. And you know, it just went from there. And I realized that, okay, this is most likely the music that will be most successful for me. And that
Mhm.
was like a surprise to me, because I
Yeah.
was I would think that, oh, that kind of music, that's really that was a long time ago that was popular, but I was wrong, you know. So
Well, it was
so
Europe, though, right? I mean, and being in Europe is I think much more open-minded and loyal to music fans
I
for
don't
long
know
periods of
about that.
time. As an
Oh,
American,
really?
I feel like with top 40 radio, it changes every 10, 15 years.
No.
Like if you were like 70s rock fan, and then you're, 80s rock fan, and then you're grunge, and then the loyalties. Now things are coming back a little bit more for all types of rock bands, but it feels
Yeah.
like, everyone gets kind of cut off, but it feels like in Europe, like, you know, bands like the Hooters could still play in Germany after the 80s because they're a good band. They're just a good band. Like
Mm.
people can still like music, and it feels like top 40. I'm saying the people here in America, I'm saying like
Mm.
radio likes
Yeah,
what it
yeah, yeah.
likes.
Get it.
And
I get
whereas
it.
the fans are a lot more able to grab on to what they like, it's
Mm.
like top 40 fans and then music fans, you
Yeah.
know, and music fans are going to stay with you forever. It's an audience you build. Top 40 fans are
Yeah.
going to go on to the next top 40 song. And
Yeah.
you got music fans.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. If it's very short-lived, if you
Right.
have a big hit, it's well, if you're lucky. I mean, like Fleetwood Mac could probably go out now and play, you know, because
Right.
they were not because songs they did 10 years ago, but because songs they did 35 years ago. So
Right.
they
Yeah.
everyone that's going to see Fleetwood Mac, they go to see and hear from the album Fleetwood Mac, and from Rumors, and from Tango in the Night, maybe. So that's what people, you know, or
Not like the
whatever.
early
Or
ones, the blues guitars and Peter Green, and like the early Fleetwood
yeah,
Mac.
yeah, 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 yeah. I like them. I
I
like
do
them a lot.
too.
I
Those
like,
are the vinyl I got.
Yeah, I like them, and I like the newer or the Lindsey
It's like two
Buckingham.
bands. It's like liking two bands. That's all.
Oh, totally, totally, totally. But I mean, these kind of older bands, they go out, play music, and very much like Yes is doing
Mhm.
these days. They're playing, I think they're playing. I can't even remember what they're playing. Close to the Edge or something like that.
I
Well,
think. Well, I think John is playing something with an orchestra or a musical group
uh,
himself.
oh yeah,
And
he does, he
and I
does, he
just
does.
missed that. Like literally, kept like I'm like, oh, I wonder when he's coming by my area, and it's like literally it was in my area like the day before. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, they're having fun. There's just a bunch of
right. But
kids
so
and
he's
they're
doing
playing.
that. Right. That sounds awesome though.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And then the other version of Yes, because there's always a version of Yes is playing.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know what they're playing. They're doing an
They're
album too.
they're touring England right now, I think, and I think they're playing Close to the Edge. But anyway, that's music that came out in 1972. You know,
Mhm.
so that's pretty much what we are and where we are right now. And if you go see Jethro Tull, they're probably going to play old songs. If you go see the Who or even bands like that used to be the new bands, like whatever the Foo Fighters
Yep.
or these guys, they've been around for a long, long time already, you know. So I saw that Tears for Fears are out now playing shows,
Yep.
and it looked great and would be interesting to see. But they will have a new album out, but I bet they're playing lots of old songs
I'm sure.
too.
I'm sure. But Tull has a new album out. I actually spoke to Ian about his new. He has a new album. It's
Mm,
good. And I think
yeah.
Yes has a new album out or coming out mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I think John's newest album probably would have been the last one he did with you. I don't know if he's done
Mm.
anything since.
He did an album called A Thousand Hands, which
Oh,
is
so yeah,
a
that's that.
very good album. Yeah, it's a
I'm
great album.
sure.
That's something he started a long time ago, and you know, working together with people on different songs. He has Billy Cobham is on it, I think.
Mhm.
Shikoria,
Oh,
bless him,
nice.
he's on it. Yeah, he has, and I can't remember now, but lots of people, and some Yes
I'll look that
people
one up.
too.
I can't believe I missed that. I can't believe I missed that. Well, we're talking about that album. Can we
Mm-hmm.
talk about the album you
Mm-hmm.
guys said you and John did that? Like I said
Yeah.
earlier, that's like one of my favorite albums of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did that happen? I mean, it's a beautiful album.
How did that happen? Well, that happened pretty much because the record label had an idea. They've been talking to me for some time. Said, well, you should, because I think at the time there wasn't anything happening with the Flower Kings, so
Mhm.
we had sort of a break, and then they said, well, you could do anything. You can make an album, you can gather a few new people, you know, and you write some music, and you can call it anything.
That's awesome as
And
an
then
artist to hear your record label say that to you, right? It's like a
yeah,
dream.
they want the money.
I know, but usually they're like, we need you to do this song from this album that you were popular. And you'd
Yeah,
be like, do what you
no,
want.
no, but anyway, and then they said, well, you should actually you should do something together with John Anderson. That would be interesting. I think Thomas Weber said, well, you're probably one of the only people that could really do something great with John Anderson, because you understand the music, you understand the
Mhm.
Yes music, and
His voice.
uh, yeah, and his voice and everything. So yeah, and I said, well, I'd like to do that, you know, and how could that happen? And then Thomas just contacted John, and the same afternoon, I think I got a mail from John, and sending the first MP3 files, you know,
Are
to
you
me. Hey,
kidding
here's a
me?
few songs here. Yeah, no, that's right.
Now,
But
have you
I
guys
mean,
had a relationship over the past years, like friends or in
no,
passing?
we met actually. We played on a cruise ship together. We played together with the guys in Transatlantic. We
Mhm.
played, let's see, we played actually side one from Topographic Oceans,
One
and
of
we
the best
played,
albums by Yes ever.
yeah. We played that one. We played, let's see, and you and we played Starship Trooper, and we played Long Distance
Mhm.
Runaround. So that's
Oh,
something I
wow.
rehearsed for a couple of months, learning the songs. And I will say the Topographic song was the most complex to learn, because I figured out it must be lots of odd time signature, but
Yeah.
in the end it seemed not to be. You know, it just seems like the meters were kind of odd, you know. But once you get into the song and playing it again, um, it just seemed a bit simpler to me, easier to understand, So I just learned the song because I didn't want to be there in front of the audience and not knowing the song. So I put in a lot of hard work in doing that,
Piece
So
by
actually
piece.
yeah, piece by piece. So that's actually, we had met before. Yeah, sure.
Well, I imagine a lot of guitarists, I mean, and musicians, every time you guys see each other, it's like, oh, we should do something together. Like, that's gonna be like the biggest thing. People are like, we should do something together. Like as an artist talking and hanging out. Like
Yeah,
you hear the most from like, because there's so many artists that you like. So probably to have that
yeah,
come out and you guys make this album, it's not like, it doesn't feel like a thrown together album. It feels like
yeah. I
nurtured
mean,
with love. It was just a perfect storm.
yeah. I think it was. It was meant to be, and we actually started working on a second album. That's
Oh,
yeah, but that happened. Well, that happened 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and
so could
then
it still happen? The rest of the
I think it's possible. I think it's possible. But what happened was that they got together. He got together, I think, with Rick and Trevor, and they
Mhm.
started touring a bit.
Oh yeah.
And I got back together. I got a request from South America to play with the Flower Kings, and at the time there wasn't any Flower Kings, so I put together a Flower Kings, and then suddenly the Flower Kings were together again, and now we made 3 albums, and so, well, and that's life, but sometimes you bump into people and we say, oh, we got to record some music together, we got to make some music, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, and
You have
and
so many good groups though. Like everybody wants, like I'm like, I wanted to see within. And then so the album we're talking about,
yeah,
is the Invention of Knowledge, the John Anderson one. But like
uh,
See Within is great. Like Keep the Flower Kings coming. Like for me, I'm like, they're
yeah,
all good groups. So
yeah, yeah,
there's only
yeah,
one person to
yeah.
be in all those bands for you to keep producing all these.
Well, it's I suppose it's quality control, and I guess I'm very, very lucky because I have the most understanding wife in the history of rock and roll. I would guess she must be
If she's still
because
your
I
wife, yeah, I'd say.
yeah. But I mean, I'm working all the time, and when I think I'm ready, I'm not ready because I go back the next day and listen again. I say, no, I gotta remix this. So this, I mean, just now, the last 4 days I've been spending on one song, remixing "The Truth Will Set You Free" from Unfolded Future,
Oh,
getting
wow.
everything
Nice.
as close as possible to the original, but still improving the original, and that's the tricky part.
Well, the
Because you want,
recordings are so good. The original recordings were good. They're not dated. Like remember in the 80s, like everything sounded like reverby or like it sounded, certain times and dated. Those albums that you're talking about, you're redoing, you're just kind
yeah.
of, to me, it's more like a cleanup, just crisper because they sounded good. There was like no sound to me, didn't sound dated. And I'm pretty critical of
No,
sounds.
no, they are crispy and they are digital. At that time, we were already onto digital.
Mhm.
They are crispy, but the problem is that they were in the mastering, they were over compressed, or in the mix,
Okay.
they were
Yeah.
over compressed, and then you lose the dynamics. And now
Mhm.
I'm in a different studio now with much better uh, converters, and much better, down to the last little bit of cable. I've improved everything, so now I hear the music in a completely different way, and I have all the details. And when you have that, you listen to the old mixes, and I just feel it sounds very squashed and over
Muddy.
compressed. No, not muddy, but it
No.
sounds the drums sound to me small, and it sounds a bit, it's a bit tiring to listen to a long song, like a 30-minute
Right.
song, when everything is super compressed. And once you get the dynamic back, you can feel the drums, you can feel the tom toms, you can feel the kick
Mhm.
drum sounding not like flap, it sounds like a kick drum. And you can hear the keyboards, like grand piano, sounding bigger and warmer. So that's been my
Your thing?
Well, that's what I've spent a lot of time the last, besides actually being on tour in America for about a month or 5 weeks or something like that with Transatlantic and with Flower Kings.
So I know you're super busy, so just wrap up with a couple of quick questions. Artwork on all your albums, just not just Flower Kings. It's so good. How do you keep it consistent, like with things with so many different people, and the artwork and the pictures, and it's important.
It's
product, I think.
Yeah, it's important.
And yours is very impressive all the times, and all of them. They're really just.
Well, I would say most of them, not all of them, but most of them, I think, are good. And it's been everything from my own paintings over to some other people's paintings, and I've been searching for artists that has something unique, and I've been lucky because I first came across a guy from Switzerland, I think, called Silas Tobal. He now lives in Arizona, and he did album covers, or actually I used his artwork for 2 Agents of Mercy albums, and then for 2 Flower Kings albums. So Banks of Eden and what's the other one? The following, I can't remember the title of the other. Anyway, so 2 of each band I used Silas, and also used Silas for the John Anderson album. So he did that
album cover is just
yeah, and he did it from scratch. So he did it on commission. So I said to him, because he loves Yes and John Anderson too. So I said, I'm working on this album with John, and could you do the artwork for us?
And his head exploded, right?
yeah, probably. And I said, I cannot guarantee, because it's all up to, it's me and John. I can't decide myself, But if John likes it, then we can go with it, So you have to work a little bit, and if you're lucky, we'll take it, and you get paid. and he said, yeah, I'd like to do all of it, not just the front. I'd like to do all of it. And he did beautiful. He probably one of the best layout guys I've had, So he did that. Yeah, he did that. And then we've been working with some other people. We've been working with another guy from Colorado, I think. Kevin Sloan, and he's just like a painter, specializes in kind of paintings of surreal paintings of whatever, birds or elephants or any kind of animal, and I just found it online, and I contacted him and asked if he could use for one of the Waiting for Miracles was an album we did 3 years ago. And
wow, is that long ago, huh? Jeez.
Yeah, that's
COVID has really thrown off the timeline, I think, for a lot of us here.
Oh, I totally did. It did. But anyway, so we found this elephant, and a couple of other things it did, like an octopus and stuff like that. So we put it on the album cover, and I just love it, because we're now in a phase where so much has been computer driven, and so many rock bands, and in particular, I would say in the progressive rock field, look at 100 progressive rock band album covers, and 97 of them are made in the computer.
Right.
So it's so refreshing with someone that actually take some oil painting or acrylic painting and put it on the canvas.
I agree.
And then you do a photograph of it, and just like in the old days,
That's why I love it. That's why I notice that kind of stuff. I pay attention. I'm like, that it's like it's a complete piece of work. You can tell the work in the album is detail oriented, and the artwork is detailed. It's a full package, like in the 70s.
Yeah. And we did also one in between. We did with Roger Dean, actually, and that's the record label, because Yes signed to the same record label as us.
Yeah,
And so they were working with Roger, and they said, well, we could ask Roger Dean if you want a Roger Dean cover. And I said, of course I want a Roger Dean cover.
Yeah.
Who do you think I am? I'm a big fan of Roger since whatever I saw the first, I think, remember the band Gun?
Yes, I do.
They had a hit with Race with the Devil.
Yep.
Yeah. Like an instrumental. No, it was actually not instrumental, but it was like a guitar driven thing,
right.
you know. And then there was another African kind of Afro rock style band called Osibisa.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger Dean did a couple of album covers for them too. It was like an elephant with dragonfly wings, you know, very colorful.
I'll have to look that one up. That's really cool.
Yeah,
But you guys. It's great though. It's a full package though. You know.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Last question is, what is your go-to guitar right now? Like, what is your favorite piece right now? You have such a great sound and tone.
Oh, you mean guitar?
Yeah, your guitar go-to sound right now. Like, what's your favorite?
Well,
I'm sure it changes.
it changes a bit, but for quite some time now, my favorite guitar has been a Fender Telecaster that actually something that I didn't mean to buy. I wasn't really interested in Telecasters. I just went to a shop in Stockholm, a guy that has vintage guitars. Probably I went there to buy a Gibson 335, which is like a hollow body guitar. And I went there, and the guitar was pretty much in pieces. It was just like the picker. He was fixing it up,
right?
And he was kind of, I don't know, maybe I'll fix it up. You know, I don't know. I haven't decided on the price. And I went all the way to Stockholm, you know, 1 hour on the train, you know, to go there and buy the guitar. And I said, I bought another, like a Gibson Les Paul from the same guy, and I still have the Gibson Les Paul, like a 1952. So that's kind of my most valuable guitar, of course. But anyway, so I went to the same guy trying to buy the ES 335 Gibson. I couldn't buy it from him. And I was just on my way out from the shop. And then I saw this red Telecaster, kind of hollow body, because it has a F hole. And I, for whatever reason, I just picked it up, sat down. I didn't even plug it into an amp. And I just strummed a few chords and played. And I said, I like this guitar. I just went to him and said, I'll have this guitar instead. And I went home. And it's very funny. And I went home and I really liked it, and I plugged it in, and it sounds great. And over time, I have fixed lots of stuff on it. You know, I've changed pickups. I've changed. I have not changed the neck, but I've changed the fretboard. The fretboard is now like a True Temperament, which is kind of a Swedish invention. If you ever seen this guitar with the crooked frets?
Really?
Yeah. You can look it up. True
I'm
Temperament.
Have to look at,
yeah. True Temperament. And the benefit playing True Temperament is that your guitar will be in tune anywhere you play on the fretboard. Normally, a guitar, it's imperfection. You cannot really get a guitar that's in tune if you play like your Bob Dylan chords and or you start playing your fancy jazz stuff chords, you know. But with this invention, you can actually have the guitar to be in tune all over, and it changes a few other things also. So it's like even the sound of the guitar. I don't know about the physics why that happened.
No.
But anyway, so I've put that kind of, or the guy who invented it, he put it on my favorite Telecaster. I've changed the tuners to locking tuners. I put in an acoustic piezo pickup in it. So
nice. What gauge are you using for strings? How thick are your strings?
Usually, it depends. Sometimes it's like 10 to maybe 10 to 52, but sometimes a little bit lighter, let's say 009 to 46 maybe. a bit depending on the guitar.
Yeah.
You know, but usually for the stuff I'm playing, there's lots of bending and stuff, you know, with the Flower Kings. So if I go with some other blues thing, you know, I may have a little bit thicker strings, you know, or
I would have gathered
that kind of thing.
thinner
Yeah.
strings, but I'm always curious because some people play strings. I'm like, I can't imagine you being that thin, you know, like a ZZ Top has they play with really light strings. And I'm like, I would have imagined it was the opposite. So it's always interesting to hear like what people get to sound with the strings, you know?
Oh, yeah. True,
Like
true.
7 or 8 Zappa and like Eddie Van Halen, all very low, like I don't know, like 8 or 7, 8, like really just in ZZ Top, thin. Like I imagine I'm just snapping you strum it once.
Oh,
You know?
yeah, totally. And also I think there's something about, I think at least I would say the bass strings, I think if there's too sloppy or
Yeah.
I mean it doesn't produce the sound I'm looking for, you know.
Yeah.
I look for a little bit of more percussive attack, you know. So, and I play with a kind of a heavy pick also. So I don't like the thinner picks. I like a heavy pick because I think it produces a bigger sound and cleaner sound, you know. If you're strumming, if you're just playing solos, it just, I don't know. I've come a long way, but when I started, I had no idea, you know. I just went with whatever
What you want,
my friends had or someone told me to have, you know. But after a while, you're trying different things, and for different guitars, I would say. Also, if you have a guitar with a tremolo bar, maybe you have a little bit thicker strings.
Yeah, I'm a thicker pick guy myself, just because I like to dig in, even if it's, or I can feel you can kind of pick and be a little more delicate, still a little thicker. Like the bending of the pick, it feels like it's, I don't know, that's just my style. But your sound, you have sound without it, your tone, even just your style has its own sound, you know. So that says a lot for your playing.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to say also over the years I've been using and owning so many different amps, but I've come back to tube amps, and I know there's lots of systems now with digital stuff that you plug in, and then you're supposed to plug straight into the PA system, you know. And I'm not fully convinced yet, I would say, but so I go back to I'm most happy on stage when I have a tube amp.
Yeah.
Could be a Vox AC30, or could be
my Vox down there.
Yeah. Oh, there you Vox, and I have my
the Vox.
and I have orange.
And I have an orange upstairs. Yeah, see, those are the ones I love too. They feel the most alive to me.
Yeah, and I have a Mesa Boogie, a small one that's kind of they tried at least to build something that could emulate a Vox, and it could emulate a Marshall, and I can't remember now, but actually I think it worked pretty well. So that's a small amp that you can carry on a flight, and
good.
Yeah, so that kind of thing. And I have Marshalls and I have Fenders also, but I try to scale down, you know. It's just lots of stuff just standing, you know, collecting dust. And
at a certain point, it gets too many toys, you forget about the songs, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
I are the best at being eclectic, you know. But, you know.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, let's say equipment does matter, but I think it's not really. I'm not the kind of guy that has to buy the latest pedal every time, you know, or once there comes a new. And I think it's sort of if you look at Gibson and Fender, you can see that Gibson and Fender they have stayed true pretty much to a couple of different models, like the Telecaster, like the Stratocaster. Gibson have their Les Paul, most popular guitar, and 335s, etc., with certain bands, and they've been pretty much the same for whatever 50 years or more.
ESG, you know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
that's probably the one I do. That's the one I want.
Yeah.
The Zappa and the AC/DC. It's a classic. sound,
It is. I bought one in the States when we were touring and brought it home, and I had it for a while, and it's just sitting collecting dust. So I think I traded it for another 335 with the guy, but well, so I got rid of it. I don't know why. It just was just sitting there. I
Well, if you're not
liked
playing
it.
it, right? But if you're not playing it, I mean, there's a certain point where somebody should play it.
No, exactly.
Okay.
So
This is fantastic, man. I want to thank you. I want to encourage everybody to go look at the links as usual. If someone, it's like being introduced to like a bunch, like 5 to 10 new bands for everybody right now to start checking out your stuff, because there's just so much different music and so many different players. There's something there for everybody,
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I have to say also, remember, beside me, there are always all these great players, as you mentioned.
Well,
Mark,
of course.
Thomas Bodin, Jonas Reingold,
Neil Morse,
Jaime Salazar, Neil Morse, Mike, and all these guys. I've been very lucky.
I think the note, if we did a connection of all the artists you're with, it would be like the TV show CSI or something. When you put all the pictures on the wall, you start the red strings of connecting everybody. It would be like the prog world of all the, like, you in the middle connecting to everybody.
Totally. Yeah.
That's it. This has been I want to thank you. This is fantastic for doing this. Really great. I want to thank you. Cool. And people check out the stuff, and you have a good night. And night because it's late for you. Thank you. You take care.
It's night for me.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.